What's up, YouTube? Haven't made a video in a little bit. Business has been kind of slow, but I wanted to show you guys the harness that we used in that Acura TL video, because a lot of people have asked me about it. Some people have actually ordered the one selling on eBay. So this is kind of what makes that harness up. So here are the two plugs from the car. You can see this is from the 2004 version. This is from a 07 to 08. I'm sorry, this is from a 04 to 06, 07 to 08. So they switched the connector, but it's still the same number of pins. Believe it or not, it still uses some of the same colors. Then they all use this for the purposes of our installs. We tend to use this harness. Here's the 04 to 06 non-touchscreen model. So this one has the following connections. You have XM, your audio plug, and then that extra connector that ties in navigation and some other audio functions, and then of course your antenna. So what our harness does is it captures this plug and this plug. Now normally when you install an aftermarket radio, you can pick one of these up from either Sonic Electronics or Crutchfield or your favorite automotive site. Even Amazon will have these. And this you plug into like so, and it gives you all the wires you need. But on the TLs, your remote wire and your subwoofer come out of this plug. So your subwoofer is actually these two wires, and then your remote wire, I believe, is this wire. Then you have on the touchscreen models, and believe it, on this model too, but it's not utilized, is your CAN bus, which is tied in into this radio as well. That's why the radios don't matter if you switch it out with a navigation screen or a non-navigation screen. But here's your CAN bus. So what our harness does is we have 3D printed a kind of like a female to female connector. So this goes in here like so, and then we have these, we source these connectors, which then plug into here, but have the correct pinout so that you can basically unite this to create a nice, easy plug and play harness where you don't have to wire tap any of these wires. You could easily get them hooked up without a problem. It saves you time, saves you getting confused or maybe tapping into the wrong wire. And then also on this plug is your steering wheel control wire. Tie that into the harness that we provide as well, so that you can tie in a steering wheel control module easily. We give you the steering wheel control wire, a ground, and a power, which is usually all you need. And if you request it, we can also tie in the wires that you'll need for a parking brake bypass. I want to start offering the bypass with the harnesses that I offer, but it hasn't been requested enough. So the reason why you may see two harnesses here is because of sound quality. So when you take the RCA pre-outs from your radio and feed them to the car, like so, you get a better, clearer signal compared to if you send the wires from your aftermarket radio. Your aftermarket, so this radio doesn't have an amplifier in it. Your amplifier is in your kick panel. But an aftermarket radio, like the Pioneers that we sell the harness for, already have a built-in amplifier, which is like 15 watts, 10 watts, or whatever. But what you're doing is you're double amplifying the signal. So when you send the signal from here through your 4-speaker wires, you're sending an amped up signal to an amplifier. So once you crank the volume up higher than normal, you're gonna get some distortion. Depending on how strong your radio is, it might just be louder and it might sound okay. But if you have a better radio, one of the higher tier models, the amplifier in there is going to be a better amplifier. So it's going to send an already amplified signal to your amplifier, and your amplifier is going to amplify that signal further, which is going to cause distortion at higher volumes. So we really recommend that, and this is the one we ship, where your pre-outs on your radio feed the amplifier, like if you were using an aftermarket amplifier, and you get a nice clean signal that's not amplified to the amplifier so that it can take care of the amplification. So that's why you'll see us use this harness instead of this harness, but they are basically the same thing. Now, here we have a 2007 to 2008 radio navigation unit. So this one has the navigation screen, navigation controls obviously, but this has aux. The 07s to 08 radios actually have a aux input in the center console and the antenna switches. So the antenna coming out of the car now, it has this plug, so you need this adapter to hook this wire up coming out of your vehicle. So this wire is going to hook into here, and then this will go to your aftermarket radio and the power antenna on your aftermarket radio. Now this one has this harness. This is a 40-pin connector, and it's thinner, fits into here like so, and then your audio connector fits into here like so. So we have the same harness for this as well, where here are all your audio connections and your steering wheel control, but here's your amplifier and the CAN bus along with the sub. We have a 3D printed version. I just don't have one in stock right now for this as well, where we unite them how we did with the other plug that we have. Now that's just a brief overview of the harness. I'm gonna make one now. I have to ship one out. After I make that harness, I'll show you guys what it looks like. And just for anyone that's curious, the difference between the navigation model of a 04 to and of a 04, 05, 06 compared to the 07, 08 is that this plug changes. This plug stays the same, but this had another 14-pin plug over here and then gets turned into a 22-pin plug. But the wires are still the same. You can interchange them. I'm actually going to also create a harness that's going to allow me to replace. I have an 04 TL, so it's going to allow me to basically go from my, where is it? From this plug to this basically. So it's going to turn out to something like this, where this is the plug from the car, and I'll be able to feed it to a newer radio, so I can feed the aux into here to the factory system. But that's another video, another discussion. This, I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of the radio and the harness that we make and how we make it. So then into the components of the harness, it's just I'm not sure the model number of this, I'll put it in the video. Then we have this part that we source. Then we have our 3D printed part that we had modeled, our Pioneer harness, and then we also use a set of RCA cables. These were ones I was testing out, but as you can see, these are really thin. I would never put something like this in my vehicle or someone else's. Anything that I ship out and I make is something I would be proud to put in my vehicle. I'm not gonna send someone this with these brittle wires. I was just testing these out because it's a good 1 to 2, because the harness from the radio only has a single sub in. So here on your stereo, your aftermarket stereo, you probably have left sub and right sub, so you can feed both to the car. So it seemed like a good idea, but this wire is really cheap. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to steal a pair of these from another harness. So I'm going to get this together, and then we'll go from there. Let's talk about these plugs. Always follow your documentation, because you do not want to do the wrong thing. Alright, so that's the 26-pin plug, which is this bad boy. This is on the 04 and 05, 06, and here we go. You can see your subwoofer positive, your subwoofer negative, your amplifier on and amplifier mute, if you ever need that. If you're doing your own project, then you have your display bus, which is your CAN bus negative, and then CAN bus positive, which should be right there. Hot off the press. So 26-pin connector and your 20-pin connector. Let's take a look at those. So here we got our 20 pin, which is right here, connector A, and then connector C, which is our 26 pin. So to get started, let's see what does what. So pretty standard here. Have your ground, your memory, your illumination, then you have your constant 12 volt, no I'm sorry, then you have your ignition, and then remote. The remote isn't in this harness. So what, just in case you were wondering, the reason why these don't look the exact same but they hold the same connectors, because this is what the connector looks like. So the connector looks the same on the 04, 06, I'm sorry, 04, 05, 06, but the actual female end looks a little different, as you can see. But prove it to you right here, it's gonna go in the same way into these as it does into this one. So yeah, not sure what prompted the change. So yeah guys, this is the same connector as this one. We stocked this because it's used, you can use it on both cars. Compared to this, you'll only be able to use it on the 06 to 04 to 06 version. And if yours is cut for some reason out of your TL, you can purchase just this connector and put all the pins back in. And we're gonna use this here because, so you have your antenna power, your switch power, then you have your radio remote switch, which is actually your steering wheel control, which is here, A3. So A1, A2, A3. Just want to pop that guy in there. Make sure he's reaching out to his full potential. It's in there. Now, so your radio remote switch needs a ground as well. Radio remote switch ground. And that we'll just ground ourselves. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, some people have off, like I had the listing on eBay of best offer, and people were offering me like $10, $20, and I get it. You know, you want stuff for cheap, but the reason why the harness is $60 is because there's a lot of pieces that go into get together. So the harness cost is almost $30, if not more. Then eBay gets a piece and PayPal gets a piece. So I make about $10 on each harness, and I spend, I mean, I have it a little more streamlined now, but you gotta understand, when I first started making these, like to sell, I was blowing time. I spent like an hour doing one. And I'm like, yeah, I can't spend an hour of my time doing that if I'm only gonna make $10. So I'm trying to find ways to cut my cost. If you guys have any ideas, let me know in the comments. But I'm trying to figure out how to make these so that, you know, everyone can afford them. Because I mean, if you're gonna put a radio on your TL, you've got to have some kind of money. But at $60, I think it's a fair price. I mean, it's not too crazy expensive. You don't have to worry about the install yourself. It's just taking the car apart, which isn't too complicated. And then you don't have to do all this crazy stuff that I'm doing. You get the harness, you plug it in, and it works, you know. So I think it's worth $60. What do you guys think? This can be our ground because A11, as we talked about before, A11, oh, this way, is this brown wire, which lines up with this. So I'm sure some of you wondering why I take those out and why I leave some in. I leave these in because your parking brake wire and then your reverse camera trigger sometimes come out the radio, and you're not always sure what pin it is. Sometimes it's right here, sometimes it's one over, sometimes it's in that spot. So this gives them wires that they can easily move over or shift around, and they know that it's not a speaker wire this way because they don't have pairs. So I just leave that for the client so that they can do what they need to. Alright guys, so we lined up each of our wires with each of our pins, meaning your subwoofer positive, your subwoofer negative. So for us, our positive is red, our negative is black. It makes sense. Then we have our amplifier turn on, which is the white wire we put yellow shrink wrap on, shrink tube. Then we have our CAN bus, positive and negative, and we have positive and negative. So here's where we're going to tie in our resistor. I'm just going to tie this off, cut it down. Here, this is going to go to our other harness, which is why we put that blue wire apart like so. This is really the only wire that connects them. And then this wire is where we're going to hook up our subwoofer. And then we have this piece which ties it all together. But let me put everything I need to in its place, and I'll get back to you guys. So. Alright guys, so we are near the very end. We just want to run a continuity test to make sure that these points are correct. And because obviously I'm not an electrician, we're looking for a beep. So we want to turn this on to this. I'm going to hit select, and if a wire has continuity, it will beep, meaning that that wire is closed. It reaches here, so it should reach here, and there's our beep, so we know our remote turn on is good. Now our subwoofer, if we reach here, see this has two, so it might be tough. I don't remember which is which. I think the shield is the negative. Nothing there, nothing there. There we go, there it goes. Oh. So now I just want to go over kind of what's here. So, where's my cover? So here we go. So, in your vehicle, you will now have this connector, which will connect there, and this connector, which will connect here. Then this will go to your Pioneer radio, and these feeds will go to your Pioneer radio. And again, the reason why we use the RCAs and not the speaker wire that comes out of the harness is because the speaker wire will send an amplified signal already to your amplifier. So in your vehicle, the TL has an amp. If you want to bypass that amp, I would make a video on it if enough people are interested, and work on that harness as well. But you would be feeding a clear signal, a preamplified, non-amplified signal, or preamplified signal, or a clean 5 volt, 4 volt, 3 volt, whatever signal to your amp from the RCAs, from the radio. The sound wouldn't be distorted, which would be cleaner, and the sound wouldn't be distorted at higher volumes. Now, it is a possibility that if you use the speaker leads, you won't get distortion, you'll just get higher volumes, but it's really dependent on the Pioneer model you have. So alright guys, with that said, I'm just going to wrap some of it with Tessa tape so it has a little bit of a better appearance. But this is what you're buying. This is the harness. As you can see, the wires here are for your radio control. Then you have a switch 12 volt, another switch 12 volt, or the amp turn on as well, and then your ground. Now the reason that I have these three is so that you can hook up an access module or another steering wheel control module. The reason why I left this one is because if you leave the steering wheel controls off, or if you decide to put steering wheel controls in and a parking bypass, you would need to use one of these wires to hook up the parking brake wire to. You're going to have to jump one of these terminals into another socket, but then all the wires you need are here, so you don't need to go and take the harness apart. So it's truly plug and play. You plug into your car, you'll keep your factory navigation, you'll keep your factory subwoofer, but you will lose that center channel speaker. To a lot of people, it's not a big problem. And here is what you will be plugging into your radio. And if you're going to use those other, if you're going to use your steering wheel controls or a parking bypass, you have the hookups for it. So alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, a like, share with someone that you know will benefit from this harness, or someone who's looking to do something like this themselves. I don't believe that hiding information from you so that I can make money is right. I think information should be free. It's just if you want to put the time and effort, and then the troubleshooting is really what it comes down to, because as you saw earlier in the video, the 2004s have this green yellow wire, and the 2008, 2007s, 2008s don't, because in the 2007s, 2008s, that antenna wire, which is really what it is, got moved to this harness. In the 04s, 05, 06s, they were left here. So that's something that someone who might be like, oh yeah, I could do that, I don't need to pay for that, might not know, and might end up needing because their radio signal is really weak, or some other kind of little intricacy like that, it gets lost out on people who aren't fully immersed or involved in this world, where they're just trying it out for their first or second time. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.